My parents threw me out on Christmas with nothing, saying you can't survive on your own. I went to the bank with the old card my grandfather left me. The manager turned pale, asked me to sit down, and said, "There's something you need to see." "Hello everybody, my name is Hannah. I'm 26 years old, and the last Christmas I ever spent living with my parents ended with me standing barefoot on the front porch, holding nothing but my coat. No suitcase, no phone charger, no laptop, not even the framed photograph of my grandfather that sat on my bedside table. Everything I owned was still inside the house. The front door closed. Then the deadbolt clicked. Christmas music was still playing inside. People were laughing, and I was outside in the freezing cold, wondering how my life had fallen apart in less than 10 minutes. If you'd asked my parents why they threw me out that day, they would have told you I was ungrateful. If you'd asked me, I'd tell you the story started years earlier. I was the oldest of 2 children. My younger brother, Ryan, had always been the favorite, not in obvious ways. There wasn't one dramatic moment where my parents announced it. It happened through hundreds of tiny decisions. If Ryan forgot to do his chores, Mom would smile and say he'd had a long day. If I forgot, I'd hear about responsibility for the rest of the week. If Ryan failed a class, Dad blamed the teacher. If I brought home an A instead of an A+, he'd ask what happened. After a while, you stop questioning it. You simply learn your place. Fortunately, there was one person who always made me feel like I mattered. My grandfather. Grandpa Walter wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. He was a retired mechanic who smelled like engine oil and peppermint candy. Every Saturday morning, he'd pick me up in his old pickup truck, and we'd spend the day together. Sometimes we'd fish. Sometimes we'd repair broken lawnmowers in his garage. Sometimes we'd just sit on his porch drinking lemonade while he told stories about growing up. He never treated me like I had to earn his attention. He simply gave it. One afternoon, when I was 16, I asked him something I'd been afraid to ask anyone else. "Do you think Mom and Dad love Ryan more than me?" He stayed quiet for a long time. Then he sighed. "I think they expect more from you." "Why?" "Because they know you'll keep trying." I looked down. "That's not really an answer." "No," he admitted. "It isn't." Then he gently placed his hand over mine. "Hannah, never measure your worth by people who only notice what you can do for them." At 16, I didn't fully understand what he meant. Years later, those words would become the reason I survived. Grandpa passed away when I was 23. It happened quickly, a heart attack. One week, we were planning our annual fishing trip. The next, I was standing beside his grave. After the funeral, everyone gathered at his house. Before I left, Grandpa's attorney quietly walked over to me. "Hannah, I have something your grandfather asked me to give you." He handed me a small sealed envelope. Inside was an old bank card. The plastic was faded. The bank logo had changed years ago. Tucked behind it was a handwritten note. "One day, you'll know when to use this. Until then, keep it safe. Love, Grandpa." That was it. No explanation. No account number. Nothing. I called the bank a few days later, but they explained they couldn't give me any information over the phone without the account holder present. Since Grandpa had passed away, I assumed the account had probably been closed. Still, I couldn't bring myself to throw the card away. I slipped it into the back of my wallet, where it stayed untouched for nearly 3 years. Life moved on. I graduated from college with a degree in graphic design and found a junior position at a small marketing agency. The salary wasn't amazing, but it was enough to help with household expenses while I saved for my own apartment. Every month I contributed to groceries, paid part of the utility bills, bought my own clothes, covered my own car insurance. I wasn't living there for free. Even so, my parents acted as though they were doing me an enormous favor. Whenever relatives visited, Mom would laugh and say, "Hannah's still living at home," as though I'd refused to grow up. She never mentioned that I'd offered to move out several times. She always insisted I stay because family helps family. Looking back, I don't think she wanted my company. She wanted my paycheck. Meanwhile, Ryan was 23, unemployed, and spent most of his days playing video games in the basement. Dad called it finding himself. No one asked him to contribute a single dollar. Whenever I pointed out the difference, Mom always gave the same answer. "Ryan's going through a difficult time." And I'm not. She'd simply change the subject. Everything finally came to a head that Christmas. Our entire family gathered for dinner. Aunts, uncles, cousins. The house smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon. For a little while, it almost felt normal. Until dessert. Dad stood up and tapped his glass. "I've got an announcement." Everyone looked at him. "We've decided Ryan's finally ready to start his own business." The room erupted in applause. Ryan grinned proudly. I smiled too. I genuinely wanted him to succeed. Then Dad continued, "So, we've decided to help him." Mom reached into a folder sitting beside her chair. "We're using the money Hannah has been contributing every month." I frowned. "My what? What?" "The savings. It'll give Ryan the start he deserves." I stared at her. "The money I've been giving you for bills." Mom nodded. "We've been setting some of it aside. I thought it would be better used helping your brother." For a moment, I honestly couldn't speak. "That wasn't your money to give away." Dad shrugged. "You live under our roof. We decide how household money gets used." I looked at Ryan. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. I took a slow breath. "I want my money back." The room became awkwardly quiet. Mom's smile disappeared. "Excuse me," I said. "I want my money back." Dad's face hardened. "After everything we've done for you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I earned that money." Mom stood up. "Don't embarrass us on Christmas." "I'm embarrassing you." Dad pointed toward the hallway. "If you're going to be this selfish, then maybe it's time you stop depending on us. I already pay my own way." "Not anymore." He walked to the front door and pulled it open. "Leave." I stared at him. "You can't be serious." His voice became colder than I'd ever heard it. "You think you're so independent. Fine, go prove it." Mom folded her arms. "And don't take anything we bought. You can't do anything on your own anyway. You're desperate." No one at the table spoke. Not one person. Ryan looked down at his plate. My aunt looked like she wanted to say something. She didn't. I slowly picked up my coat from the hallway. Everything else. My clothes, my laptop, my personal documents, my keepsakes, even Grandpa's photograph, stayed inside. The door closed behind me. And just like that, I had nowhere to go. I spent Christmas night sleeping on my best friend Megan's couch. The next morning, we sat in her kitchen, trying to figure out what to do. I counted the cash left in my wallet. It wasn't much. Then, as I reached for my debit card, something caught my eye. Tucked behind it, the old bank card Grandpa had given me 3 years earlier. For some reason, I heard his voice in my head. "One day you'll know when to use this." I looked at Megan. "I think I need to go to the bank." An hour later, I walked into a small downtown branch. The building was older than most others in the city. I handed the faded card to the teller. "I'm not even sure this account still exists." She looked at it curiously. "I'll have someone check." A few minutes later, a man in a dark blue suit approached me. "Miss Hannah?" "Yes?" "I'm the branch manager." He looked down at the old card, then back at me. His expression changed completely. The color drained from his face. He looked toward his office before quietly saying, "Ma'am, would you please come with me?" I followed him inside. He closed the door, locked it, then turned his computer monitor toward me. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I think there's something you need to see. Sometimes, the greatest inheritance isn't money. Sometimes, it's the truth someone protected until the exact moment you were strong enough to uncover it." The bank manager waited until I sat down before speaking. He placed the old card on his desk with surprising care. "May I ask, when was the last time this card was used?" I shook my head. "I don't even know if it's ever been used. It belonged to my grandfather. He gave it to me before he passed away." The manager nodded slowly. "I thought so." He turned the monitor toward me. On the screen was an account profile. The account was still active, but that wasn't what caught my attention. It was the account holder's instructions. "Release account information only to Hannah Carter when she presents the original bank card in person." My heart started racing. "What is this?" The manager opened a digital file attached to the account. "Your grandfather met with us several times before he passed away. He left very specific instructions." I could barely breathe. He clicked another document. A scanned handwritten letter from Grandpa appeared on the screen. "If Hannah is standing in this office, it means life has probably become harder than she deserves. Please make sure she receives everything I've prepared." Tears filled my eyes before I'd even finished reading. The manager quietly slid a tissue box across the desk. He thought this day might come. I wiped my eyes. What exactly did he leave me? He folded his hands. "Not just an account, a trust." My mind went completely blank. "A trust?" He nodded. "Your grandfather sold several investment properties years before his death. Rather than dividing everything immediately, he placed part of the proceeds into a trust. Its purpose was to help you establish your own life." Why wasn't I told? He hesitated. "Because your grandfather instructed us not to contact you unless you came here yourself. He believed you'd know when you truly needed it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So, how much is in it?" He looked back at the screen. "After taxes, investments, and several years of growth, approximately $486,000. I stared at him. "I'm sorry. Did you say $486,000? "Yes." I honestly thought I'd misheard him. For a moment, the amount didn't even seem real. Then he added something that mattered even more. The trust also includes a letter. He handed me a sealed envelope. I immediately recognized Grandpa's handwriting. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside was a single folded page. My sweet Hannah, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer here to remind you of something I hope you've never forgotten. You were never the problem. My vision blurred. I've watched you spend your life trying to earn love that should have been given freely. I couldn't change everything, but I could make sure that one day, you'd have the freedom to choose your own future. This money isn't meant for revenge. It isn't meant to prove anyone wrong. It's meant to give you peace. Build a home, start a business, travel the world, help others if you choose. But promise me one thing. Never use this gift to rescue people who only remember your worth when they need something. Love, Grandpa. By the time I finished reading, I was crying openly. Not because of the money, because someone had seen me, really seen me. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Over the next several weeks, the bank helped me transfer the trust into my name. I rented a small apartment, bought a reliable used car, replaced my laptop so I could continue working. Most of the money stayed invested, exactly as Grandpa had intended. I touched very little of it. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't surviving. I was planning. About 2 months later, my phone rang. It was my aunt. Hannah, have you spoken to your parents? No, they've been looking for you. I wasn't surprised. What happened? She sighed. Ryan's business failed. Already? He spent most of the money within weeks. My stomach sank. And your parents? They borrowed against the house to help him. They're struggling now. A few days later, there was a knock at my apartment door. I looked through the peephole. Mom and Dad. I opened the door, but didn't invite them inside. Mom looked exhausted. Dad seemed smaller somehow. Hannah, we need to talk. I nodded toward the hallway. I'm listening. Dad cleared his throat. We've made mistakes. I stayed quiet. Mom looked around my apartment. This is nice. Thank you. Another awkward silence. Finally, Dad asked. We heard. He hesitated. Seems that your grandfather left you something. There it was. Not, how have you been? Not, are you okay? Straight to the money. I folded my arms. Who told you? The family knows. I nodded slowly. And? Mom's eyes filled with tears. We're in a difficult position. I know. We were hoping. Dad struggled to finish the sentence. That you might be willing to help us. I looked at both of them. Then I remembered Christmas Day, standing barefoot on the porch, hearing the lock click behind me, hearing Dad say, go prove you can survive on your own, and Mom saying, you can't do anything on your own. Grandpa's letter echoed in my mind. Never use this gift to rescue people who only remember your worth when they need something. I took a slow breath. I hope things get better for you. Dad looked confused. That's all. I nodded. You told me I could manage. I did. And you were right. I managed. Then I looked at both of them. So will you. Neither of them argued. Neither of them became angry. They simply looked at each other. For the first time, they understood what those words had felt like. Before leaving, Mom quietly said, I wish we'd treated you differently. So do I. Then they walked away. Epilogue. Soft piano becomes lighter, carrying peace earned through difficult choices. It's been 4 years since that Christmas. I still keep Grandpa's old bank card in my wallet, not because it works anymore, because it reminds me of the day my life changed. I eventually started my own graphic design studio. It's small, but it's mine. Every year at Christmas, I volunteer with a local charity that helps young adults who suddenly find themselves without a place to stay. I know what that first night feels like. No one should face it alone. My parents eventually sold their house and downsized to something they could truly afford. Our relationship exists now, but it's built on distance and honesty instead of obligation. As for Ryan, getting knocked down forced him to grow up. He found steady work, learned to live within his means, and eventually apologized for staying silent the night I was thrown out. I accepted his apology because it was genuine. My thoughts. Looking back, I don't think my grandfather's greatest gift was the money he left behind. Money can make life easier, but it can't tell you who you are. His greatest gift was believing in me before I believed in myself. For years, I thought surviving meant proving my parents wrong.